Well, welcome back to the Small Business Mindset. I always love to have guests on here that have a story that is interesting, not only from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective. I would like all of you to meet Bobby Brown. Bobby and I had the pleasure of getting to know each other, and I'm going to go back a few years, 17 years ago. If it's been that long, I feel old. I'm like, has it really been that long?
It's been that
But
long.
Bobby and I met because we both work for the same company. It's a large credit union who has actually had offices in 4 different states across the Midwest. So Bobby and I were located in different markets, but Bobby spearheaded our IT department. But the one thing that really impressed me about him was, a lot of times when you're in your silo of your particular job, sometimes that comes with more technical expertise, which he had. But what really impressed me about Bobby is the fact that you have something that really engaged with our entire company, from the teller you walk in the door to the customer base. I mean, it encompassed the company, and you helped create a culture in that credit union business that we both work for that was very, I mean, it was contagious.
Mhm.
And then I've gotten to watch you go on to different career paths and career, business ownership and finding your purpose. And I think that's where I know when I talk to a lot of my clients, it's not just the tactics in the business. And they might have that, but I think it's the bigger picture of trying to figure out, how do we as individuals fit into our business? Is this truly the purpose we're driven, and what's all behind that? So I just like thank you for joining me today. And I'm so glad you're
Absolutely.
here. But would you mind telling our listeners and our viewers, walk us through your career, walk us through what you're all about, if you don't mind. No
No,
pressure,
absolutely.
right?
Thank you so much for that intro, by the way. And I always interacting with you back at the credit union. It was always fun interacting with you and working with you and stuff like that. So thank you for that intro, though.
That
Okay, so where do I begin? Gosh, where I'm at now is I work in media, social media, and a little bit of marketing, and all that began back at the credit union. I worked there, started as a teller, and then a member service rep, and then eventually worked my way into the IT department. And while I was working there, social media had just started growing a little bit, and I love the credit union. Like working there, but I didn't see that as my future. And I'd always had loved working in media and marketing, and I really saw social media as a way for me to be able to push that. I didn't. To be honest, to be vulnerable, I guess here, I always wanted to be an actor. I always wanted to be on TV. I always wanted to be in the movies, or doing something where I entertained people or inspired people. And social media kind of was. I was watching it grow, and it kind of gave me that platform. But while I was working at the credit union, I remember talking my boss. You remember Marty? I talked him into letting me buy some video equipment so that I could create some training videos. And we had just started the initiative. What was it called? Good to Grow. I believe it was called Good to
right.
Grow.
That's
And
right.
that was a thing where we were wanting to create an internal culture at the credit union. And I was like, media's got to be it. Video's got to be it. So um, they bought me some equipment. I created some internal training videos, some other fun videos. I remember talking the CEO, Kelly Diven, into doing a podcast so that we could do a podcast in the credit union so he could share out and let people know what's going on within the credit union. And I tell you, Kirsten, I fell in love with the whole process. I didn't I kind of knew what I was doing. I did the whole YouTube university where I looked things up on YouTube, how to figure it out. And it was the process of creating content for people to enjoy, to learn from, that just motivated me and got me going. So after that, I decided I want to do this. I want to work in media and marketing. And then shortly after that, I discovered disc golf. Now, if people are unfamiliar, some people know it by frisbee golf. But it's actually a really large sport. And a friend of mine had two courses that he wanted to do a tournament there, and he needed help with his website and promotions. And so I started doing videos and photography for some of the tournaments, and met up with some people at the PDGA, the Professional Disc Golf Association, and just was like, disc golf is growing. I want to grow this business. I need to get going into disc golf and make a name for myself in disc golf. And again, social media was it. I didn't have to have a huge production studio. All I needed to do was have a camera, a microphone, and ideas, and I could create videos and upload them to YouTube. I didn't have to wait for anybody to give me permission to upload it. I just pushed my stuff out there. So that's what I did. And I kind of grew my name in the disc golf world, and I'm kind of jumping a bunch of steps, so
Good.
sorry
That's
about
good.
that. But
No.
and then I met a man named Jeremy Rusko. He owned a company called Dynamic Discs, and I started doing part-time work for him, where I would travel to his tournaments in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, and I would create what called tournament videos, where I would cover the whole tournament and put them out on. First, I did DVDs, and then once YouTube really took off, I would start putting them out on YouTube. And then it was in about 2014. Well, during that time, I worked full time at the credit union, part time at night for Dynamic Discs. So I would go 8 to 5 at the credit union, go home, have dinner, work for another 4 or 5 hours on videos. And even though it was strenuous and it was taxing on my brain and my family, I loved it. I loved the whole process, and I wanted to turn it to something. So in 2014, he hired me full-time. The business grew big enough to hire me full-time. I moved out to Emporia, Kansas, and I just became their social media director and just created social media for all the platforms: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and of course, recently TikTok. I did that for a few years, moved me and my wife out there. And this is kind of part of the story that it'll make sense, but about 4 years into working there, we got a divorce. And I stayed working there for about 3 years in Emporia, Kansas, and then I felt led to come back to Oklahoma to be closer to family. So I left that job, totally scared out of my mind, wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I knew I was putting trust in my faith that I was making the right decision. And it wasn't until someone said, because I kind of panicked. I was having some panic attacks and stuff about what I was going to do, how I was going to. I only have an associate's degree. I mean, I don't want to say only because it's something, but everywhere I looked, bachelor's degree. And every job I tried to try out for, that was like, they wouldn't let you in the door unless you had a bachelor's degree. And someone said, Bobby, you've been doing social media for 12, 15 years. Why don't you just do it on your own? Why don't you just freelance and do it? And that scared me so much, but I decided to do it. And now 9 months later, I am now freelance social media manager for 5 different clients I have. And I am doing it. It's amazing that I'm doing it, but I'm doing it, and it scares me almost every other day just because of the volatility of it. But it's also exciting as well to create a business of my own, and I love it. That's that was really condensed
No, that was
story.
good. That was good though, because your story, even though our stories are so unique, the fact that we go through these transitions, and I think the old adage of you work for a company forever, you work
Yeah.
for a company when you're young and you retire from the same company is really out the window. I mean, and I think it's funny how different things are put in our path. Like, who would have thunk you would have taken a job at a credit union doing IT, and that led to social media, and
Yeah.
that led to, filling your passion. And I think a lot of us have a similar story. It's just a different path. And
Yeah.
it's just, you chose to walk through the door, and you chose to ask the question. Because what if you went to your boss at the time and you're like, hey, we have this ginormous strategic initiative for the company we're working with, that's full of passion and culture and buy-in, and it has to have a media component. They could have said, no, it doesn't. Don't worry about it.
Right.
But they said yes, and you asked, and it kept going.
Yeah.
So that is huge. I was talking to a client recently, and I was asking him, like, when someone comes to you and has a big idea, other than the tactics and the performa and the financials and putting the plan together, what else do you look for? And he thought for a minute, and he came back to me. He goes, Moxie. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And I think that's what I see in you. And you say, I took the leap and I did it, but I have to ask you, how does that feel? How did that feel to do that?
It feels amazing. I mean, it's again, I say it's scary, but what I've learned over is that's when you grow in the uncomfortable zone, or when you're not in your comfort zone. That's when you grow. And you hear the whole cliche of try something scary every day, or try something new all the time. And it's a cliche for a reason, because it's true. You need to try something new. You need to do something adventurous. And for me, that helped build my confidence, so that next time I had an obstacle, I just felt that much more confident to go for it. Now, I have to realize that I had to come to terms that not everything I try will work out, but in the end, it'll work out somehow, because then I learned that wasn't something for me, right? But without trying, of course, they say, the answer is always no unless you try. So It feels great that can look back and see the successes, and it got me to where I'm at now. I can also look at some of the failures and learn from those and keep going with it. But so yeah, it feels great. It feels like, I don't want to say like I can do anything, but why not? Why can't I try anything and see what happens?
Right. Did you ever think 17 years ago that you would be in the position you're at?
No, never would have thought. Um, Working for myself, being self-employed, never would have thought. I always relied, like you said before, the old adage of working for a company and retiring from the same company 40 years later, it's not the norm. I never would have thought of that. I figured that's what I was going to do. I was going to, for a while there, I was just going to work at the credit union and see as far as I could go. And then when I was with Dynamic Discs, the thing is, that was a very lucrative job, and I did see myself retiring from Dynamic Disc, working in disc golf for the rest of my life. But now I am going to work in disc golf for the rest of my life, just in a different way. But no, there's no way. If you would have asked me 17 years ago, would you be working for yourself, um, sitting at home with all this technology and producing content for people all over the world? No, I would have thought that I would be doing that. I wanted to do it, and I said to myself I was going to do it. So I guess, yes, I saw it, but I didn't see it, if that makes sense. In other words, I knew I was going to push the limit. I knew I was going to do as much as I could do, but to think that I would be doing it by myself and making as much of an impact as I'm making, no, I didn't think I'd be there.
So cool. I want to switch gears for a second, but this
Yeah.
totally plays into your success and progression. I want to ask you, what are your personal habits that you do every day? And whether it's health, whether it's, mental, whether it's, getting clear. Because I think we all have our different habits that we do every day, whether it's a morning routine or a daily routine or a weekly routine. Walk us through that. What gets your mindset focused and what helps create purpose in your day and your work?
Yeah, well, to give you some context and about my routine, from watching my journey at the credit union that at one time I had gotten up to 265 pounds, and I've always been a big guy, right? And that was the time I hit my highest weight, and my father had a heart attack and had quadruple bypass surgery. And then I started having gallbladder attacks, and that was kind of my wake-up call to that. I need to do something different, otherwise I'm going to end up on the operating table having a heart attack. So I went on a health journey. Now, I went through every diet. I went through paleo, keto, Weight Watchers. I didn't try out the crazy potato diet. I never did go that crazy, but I tried a bunch of diets. But I ended up starting to work running, and I ended up losing 92 pounds, and that was quite a journey. I ended up running a couple half marathons and a marathon, and that was awesome. Felt great, but then life started happening again. Once it's interesting, because goals are great, right? Goals give you something to attain, but then a lot of times what happens after the goal's accomplished, right? How do you sustain that? How do you keep going? Well, what happened was I'd lost the 92 pounds, ran my half marathon, and then after that, it was like, well, I can't keep running. My body wasn't built to run marathons all the time.
Nobody's
My
body
knees,
is built to run marathons all the time. Yeah.
and so my knees were hurting, and I just could, it took a lot of training to train for a marathon. So as life started happening again, I started gaining some of the weight back. And just within the last 2-3 years, I've got back down. I've lost another 70 pounds. So I'm good. I'm feeling great. But what has helped me with that is realizing that the routines that I have to have, you asked me about routines, is that you have to have sustainable routines. They can't be fad things. They can't be things that are quick fixes. Those always go away. It's got to be things that I can sustain. So what I do is my routine is I get up in the morning and I do a little meditating, a little prayer, right, to get my day started. I actually walk into the bathroom and I look into the mirror, and I actually have a sheet of paper next to me with some positive self-talks, like I'm compassionate, I'm energetic, a bunch of things that I am, the goals I have and who I am, and to keep it real. I like to say keep it real. I actually tell myself I'm dope. I am good, right? I'm good, and everything is always working out for me, no matter how it happens, right? Because to me, that's creating that positive beginning to your day just to get ready and go. Now, if it's a workout day, I'll go do my workout for about 45 minutes, and then I'll come home and I'll put my walking shoes on. I'll go anywhere from a 30-minute to an hour walk because I love being outside. That being outside is just so energetic and gets my day started. Then I come back here, cook my breakfast, and then I'll read a little scripture verse that I have on maybe a Bible plan that I'm following, and then I'm off to work. To me, those types of things are just as important as when you, and a lot of what I've learned is through my health journey, because when you go work out, you have to do it on a consistent basis, right? The consistency is the key. A lot of times what had happened in the past is I would work out and I'd be really great. I'd hit a nice goal weight, and then I would stop working out, and then the weight would start coming back, or I'd feel sluggish again. I've had to learn that that's just the lifestyle I have to have, is I have to be doing something active to keep with the healthy journey. And that's the same thing with my mind. You have to do things on a consistent basis to feed your mind the positive stuff, because our human behavior is negative. We automatically go to the negative, and you've got to fight that, just like you've got to fight not having that piece of cheesecake or that extra helping of, dinner that you had. Just like you have to say no to that, you have to combat the negative stuff. And I like to do that with positive self-talk. So my mornings start out, no matter what mood I'm in, with something positive to get my day started.
That's huge. That's fantastic advice. And I always like to share with people, it's akin to, let's say you're in the market for a new car, and you're like, okay, what kind of car do I want? I want to buy a Honda Accord. All of a sudden, Honda Accords start appearing, I'm like, wait a minute, everyone's driving a Honda Accord,
Exactly.
It's like the power of that positive focus. It's like positive things start happening. The more you
Yes,
focus on, what you focus on gets bigger, right?
absolutely.
It's huge. Let me ask you about, and I love the fact that you got into social media early on.
Hmm.
And I wish, all of us had a time machine. We could go back and, invest in Google and all YouTube and, buy
Exactly.
Bitcoin when it was, pennies and all that kind of stuff. How did you, I know you had a very high interest in media and
Hmm.
being a voice. And obviously you have a very natural presence about you. So that's just an automatic, but how did you even get started in the social media realm? Because even though, in this day and age, and I'm gonna call people our age, really they grapple with, how do I even engage on social media? It's such a huge thing. What do I need to do? What advice can you give business owners or people that are trying to engage an audience in that medium?
Okay, so the biggest thing, and I've actually had one of the things I've done is coaching clients. So I've had people where I, get for an hour a week and I coach them on social media. The biggest thing I tell people is that obviously don't be scared of it. It's not going to bite you. It's okay. You posting stuff all of a sudden isn't going to be everybody all up in your business. You don't have to post what you ate. You don't have to post everything out there. But what you need to do is you need to remember that social media is social. Don't take the social out of social media. All it is just a digital water cooler. It's just like if you were at a networking meeting, right? And let's say you're a realtor, right? Well, you want to go talk to people, and you want to, you don't want to go jump down their throat like, hey, what's your name? I'm Bobby. I sell houses. I've got this house for sale, right? You're not going to do that, but you're going to build a relationship and a rapport with people, right? To get to know them, because you know that eventually somebody's going to bring up that they need a house, or somebody's going to say that their friend is looking at a house, and then you can go for that sale. But be social. It's the same thing with social media. You get on Facebook and you just be social. So that's my initial thing, is the way you look at it. You have to look at it as a social water cooler, or just like the water cooler online. And then don't put too much pressure on yourself. Yes, if you could post every day, twice a day, 5 times, that would be fantastic. But don't put that pressure on yourself. You don't have to post all the time. All you have to do is keep in mind is that you want to make sure you bring value to people that follow you. So if you've already got an audience, the biggest thing is bringing them value. You don't want to just post and be a billboard saying this is, if you have a product where you're just constantly posting this is on sale, products and stuff like that. Find out, know your demographics, know what pain points they have. How does your product solve their pain point? And then give them value by showing them how the product can solve the pain point. And do it on a consistent, if you can only do it once a week, just do it once a week. If you can do it twice a week, that's great. More times, that's better. But if you only can do it once a week because you've got other things going on and you're just the only person running the business, then that's perfectly fine, as long as you're consistent. And then the other thing I would say is don't get wrapped up in too much of the trends, right? You know, TikTok and Instagram Reels, the biggest thing was trying to do the lip syncing and all the trendy stuff. That's great. It'll help you, but don't get too wrapped up into that thinking that, oh my gosh, I put a video out, it wasn't trendy, it wasn't, quote unquote viral. As long as you're bringing value to your followers, you'll find your niche, you'll find your space, and it'll be effective.
So on that, with all the different social media vehicles, I mean, I use LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I'm not really on Snapchat except to communicate a little bit with my daughter,
Right.
but I'm not on it. TikTok, same thing. And I know for my business, LinkedIn is probably my number one referral base, and Instagram's number two. But do you have a recommendation or maybe a category? Like where should people focus on efforts to get out their message? Is it one or the other? Is it everything all at once? Is it, considering different options for each lane?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. It's like do what you can do. Yes, you need to find out who your people are, who your demographic is, and you need to go where they're at, right? So depending on your business, if LinkedIn is a big place where a lot of people network and post and things like that, then yes, that's where you need to be. Don't get wrapped up in thinking, oh my gosh, TikTok is huge, I need to be on TikTok. What you need to do is, so if you were to ask me which one should I be on, I would say yes, all of them. You should be on all of them. But that's not sustainable unless you've got a team of people that can do it. If it's just you and a couple people, don't worry about it. Find the one where your people are at, your audience, your target audience is, and concentrate on that. Once you get comfortable with that, and in a sense, once your business grows and you say, okay, now I've got time for another platform, again, what's your demographics? If they're really young people, then yes, you're going to want to look at TikTok and Instagram Reels and a little bit of Snapchat. If it's an older demographic, that's kind of where Facebook is leaning and more LinkedIn is leaning. So it's just like anything else that you're marketing toward. Find out where your people are at, your target audience is at, and then go concentrate on that area.
I love that. Yeah. And because I think too, it's when I first started engaging in social media for me and my business, I think I was looking for how many likes do I get? How many people are, but what I now concentrate on is like how many people are viewing it, because those analytics are very interesting. And I might have a ton of views and very little likes, but it's exposure in that medium. Okay, so as small business owners or people that wanted to get engaged in that area of business, should you hire out social media? Should you do it yourself? Is there a prerequisite for something like that? I mean, because you can dump a lot of money into something like that.
Oh yeah, you can definitely dump a lot of money. It really depends on where you're at in your business. I mean, that's a complicated question. If I've had people I've had people that I've coached that they just can't afford to hire me to create content for them. So I teach them how to do it. And then their whole objective is to do it themselves until they can grow big enough to where they can hire someone to create content. If your budget can afford having someone create it, man, that would be so great, because then you can, let's say you create whatever widget you're creating, you're an expert at that. You're not an expert at social media. So to be able to get someone else who is an expert at social media, if your budget can afford it, that would be fantastic, because they know the trends, they know when to post, how to post, the right captions, and you can concentrate on creating the best little widget that you create. So it really depends. To me, it depends on the budget and how much you can spend. But I got to tell you, I've worked with some people that they don't want to know about social media. They know social media is important, but they could care less about posting stuff other than to help their business. And so that's kind of where I come in as far as a content creator.
That's fantastic advice. And on that same thread, I talk to a lot of business owners and myself included. I have to remind myself in this camp is that you hit on something. If you're really good at creating the widget, you're the one that is the creative brains and it's your thing and it's your idea and that's what you do best. How do you navigate the rest of everything? And I grapple with this internally. It's like, okay, do I hire out this particular service in my business? Do I, whether it's a contract worker, meaning I'm hiring
Hmm.
accountant or I'm hiring, a marketing person or I'm hiring, those extra services. What have you seen throughout your time in business, working for bigger businesses and working for yourself? How do you navigate that? And how do you decide when's the right time? Where do you focus your time and what's your time worth?
Yeah, I think that's what it does come down to is what is your time worth? Again, as if you're growing that business, you're going to have to you're going to have to wear a lot of hats until the business gets bigger and you can take on. But just like you said, at some point you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm the marketer, I'm the accountant, I'm the public relations, I'm the face of the company, and I'm the person creating the actual product. At some point, you've got to decide that I've got to have someone who's an accountant, who's an expert in that area, take care of the accounting, so I can worry about this other parts. And that, to me, that's the same thing with social media. Is that at some point you have to decide. That's something you have to decide on your own. If you, again, if you have the money to do it, I would say do it. If you don't, there's plenty of ways to learn how to do it and do it on your own and make it part of your daily process, so that you're putting posts out there and creating marketing for it.
I love it. So as we're wrapping up our time today, and I love to keep my podcast a little bit shorter because I know
Yeah,
I'm the type of person that when I listen to podcasts, which is daily, I'm either getting ready or I'm in the car, and I like something that I don't have to keep listening to throughout the day. I mean, it's great.
absolutely.
Unless it's amazing. I'm like, I need to listen to this hour-long podcast. Can you leave our listeners and our viewers with something, talking about purpose? So as we're going
Mhm.
down the journey of life and business, what advice would you have to give our listeners and viewers as far as like reaching for your purpose and feeling purposeful in your life through your work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, it is a journey that I've been on my own, getting out on my own and going through some of the ups and downs of growing my business. I mean, I still own a house in Emporia, Kansas. I Airbnb it out, so that's another business in itself. I'm trying to grow this business in social media. I've got one company that's actually looking to maybe even do some distribution here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I'm trying to grow that part of the business with them. And I have to ask myself, what drives me when I get up in the morning? When I wake up, what motivates you to get up and do the thing you're going to do? A big question I have to ask myself is, the person that I want to be, what would he do? What is the thing that he would do? When it comes to my health, the person I see myself being, a healthy person, a physically active person, what would that person do? Well, would that person eat a piece of cheesecake or say no to the cheesecake? Would that person go for a walk or sit and watch TV? Well, that person would go for a walk. Just like in that, to me, as businesses, what would that person do? Would that person make the calls, the cold calls they need to make to get some sales? Would they network with other people to create a network so that if they ever need anything in another part of business, they can reach out to that person? That's what they would do. And so back to the getting up in the morning, what motivates you? If you're getting up in the morning and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want another day of clocking in and going to this, then you need to reassess what's going on. And then you need to realize that, what are your expectations? So if you're not liking your job, is it the money? Is it the accolades that you get from the job that's keeping you going? Well, that's not going to be sustainable. You've got to find something that you enjoy doing so that you can feel like you have a purpose in what you're doing and you're getting up. Another thing I had to stop doing as well is I had to stop comparing myself to others. I'm 50 years old. I left the company when I was 49. Again, it was a lucrative company, starting all over again. Um, I'm living I'm living in an apartment right now because this is what I wanted to make sure that any money I have, I'm putting back into the business. So I'm living in an apartment. I own a house. All my furniture is all in my house over in Emporia, Kansas. And I would look at other people my age and I'd say, they've got a house, they've got this. And I had to stop and say, that's okay. I'm at where I'm at in my journey. It is what it is, but I'll be okay and everything's going to work out. Right? So I have to constantly tell myself, stop comparing myself to others. right? And then I have to look at my internal limiting beliefs, right? What do I how do I believe in myself, and how do I see myself succeeding, right? And again, back to the positive self-talk. I cannot let the negativity of, oh my gosh, I'm starting over again at 50 years old. I'm living in an apartment. I've got all these other things. It'll be okay. I'm building up toward a successful future, and I got to keep that going and keep that belief system in my head, right? And then obviously constantly having a growth mindset is going to help you feel purposeful. Constantly doing things that help you grow, listening to podcasts, reading books, doing the exercise, going to conferences, anything that's helping your mind grow so that you feel like you have a purpose, right? So you're not just kind of drudging through life and, oh my gosh, not excited about the next day and stuff like that. And then your core values. That's another thing I had to realize. And one of the things that drove me back to Oklahoma is I had to realize that, what do I value in life the most? I value family and I value friends. How do I make that happen? I moved back to Oklahoma where all my family and friends are at, and I had to live out those core values. And to me, those are the type of things you need to do to make sure that you feel like you have a sense of purpose. And again, it's something that has to be consistent and constant. You're going to have the ups and downs. Another thing that I heard this the other day, and it was so powerful and it's so simple. This too shall pass. If things are going fantastic, remember, this too shall pass. So you've got to do things that you're ready for the tough times. And then when the tough times hit, this too shall pass. It'll be okay. Keep with your core beliefs. Keep with the routines. Keep pushing and keep going on. Keep with your convictions, and you'll get back to the ups and the highs, and you'll be okay. And just know that that's just life. Life has ebbs and flows, ups and downs, but this too shall pass, and you'll be okay. But that's what makes life exciting. It makes it scary, but it also makes it very exciting.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bobby. And thanks for your time today. How can we connect with you? What's the best way to do that?
One of my nicknames I have is Uncle Bobby Jr., and it's you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook. Now, I didn't get into the story, but I also have a website, CoolDaddySlickBreeze.com. It's kind of a nickname that I got from disc golf. But that's where I put all my work out there as far as photography and video and coaching and stuff like that. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Uncle Bobby Jr.
And I'll make sure include all of that in the show notes. So anyone wants to, I encourage them to do it. Thank you for your time today. Always great to connect with you. And it's so glad to see your face.
Yes.
And this has been a phenomenal conversation, and I hope our listeners agree. So
awesome. Thank you for the opportunity, Kirsten.